As I listened to Michael Earle's tapes, my heart ached. My mind searched frantically for a justification, any justification, and a few times I came close to finding one. But deep in my soul, I knew that what he was saying was true. The Bible and Quran are replete with stories that portray God as anything but kind, loving, just, or generous. These sacred texts in many places portray a God who can scarcely be described in any way other than as a cosmic terrorist. Why didn't I see this before? An even more wrenching question is, how could I have read these same passages repeatedly, yet remain unfazed? I had, after all, read the Bible twice from cover to cover, soon after my born-again experience. Here is another place where understanding our brain's creation story has really helped me. Instinctively, we use our considerable human powers to rationalize choices that our deep reptilian and mammalian drives insist upon. A wandering nation in exile that finally manages to conquer the inhabitants of a rich valley would be foolish to take on the humanitarian burdens of ungrateful prisoners. And there is more. Every one of us alive today is alive because at least some of our ancestors were the most effectively brutal people in our landscapes of origin. Some of our grandmothers, many generations back, were raped by or forcibly wedded to marauders, and that means that those marauders are our grandfathers. To gain some perspective on how these horrific acts fit into the evolutionary psychology of humans, one can witness the same process among many social animals. Infanticide is common among social mammals when a new dominant male takes over. The new male will kill the offspring of his defeated rival so that he can mate with the now childless females. On Discovery's Animal Planet channel, the program Meerkat Manor tracks the day-to-day activities of Africa's little masked mongoose of the Kalahari Desert. In this documentary series, family groups of meerkats are shown waging war with one another over disputed territory. In a recent episode, one family group comes upon the unguarded burrow containing the pups of the other family group and attempts to kill the pups. Any twinges of moral doubt about attacking other people, even slaying their infants, may not shift our behavior so long as we are convinced that God is on our side. How could the ancient Hebrews have recorded their history in any other way? How could any sieging or besieged people have succeeded and survived without such quote-unquote moral support? Are we moderns any less prone to invoking God's assent, if not outright command, when we choose to engage in collective violence? Evolution offers a much less vindictive and far more venerable understanding of God than the one portrayed in the Bible and the Quran. This should not, of course, be surprising, nor is it a denigration of Scripture. In a divinely emergent cosmos, how could it have been otherwise? Imagine someone inviting you to learn about the greatest king who ever lived. The story they then told you included more than a few instances of this king ordering genocidal ethnic cleansing, the wholesale slaughter of women and children, and the extermination of entire cultures. Now imagine when you asked questions about those particular events, you were told, "Oh, don't worry about those incidents. Instead, concentrate on these other examples that show what a kind, loving, generous king he really was." For me, it wouldn't matter how many good works the king had to his credit, because the stories that revealed his genocidal nature were just too gruesome to forget. Respect and adoration of this monarch would not be my natural inclination, but fear would be. So here's where I've come to. Of course the Bible and the Quran in some places portray God as a terrorist. Considering the time and context of scriptural origins, sacred texts could not have been written otherwise. Of course the image of God portrayed in Scripture is sometimes terrifying. Fear is a motivational force that would have contributed mightily to group cohesion at a time when disparate tribes needed to be united into one nation, or when the growth of cities meant that ethnically diverse peoples regularly commingled. What we also know about human nature is that we are endowed evolutionarily with a superb capacity to rationalize an is into an ought, thanks to the brilliance of our monkey mind. Evolutionary psychology also teaches, and we all surely have experienced, that self-deception is a natural and emotionally calming talent. This is just as true for groups as it is for individuals. The winners will invariably explain to themselves and everyone else that God told them to do, or at least approves of, what they just did. Of course the Hebrew leaders, after their armies had slaughtered a village or region, would recount stories of how God commanded their actions. The error, indeed the tragedy, is arguing that biblical portrayals of God accurately reflect the nature of ultimate reality. No time or culture, even our own, should be burdened post hoc with the responsibility of shaping humanity's understanding and relationship to ultimate reality once and for all. Each people will describe and relate to the divine as best they can for their time and their conditions. Each generation honors its ancestry by taking from the past only that which is still life-giving. Each generation provisions posterity by remaining open to new teachings and by advising those who shall follow to do the same.